YouTube tells me we're live. And here we are, and boy, do we have some things to talk about tonight. I mean, we always have things to talk about. I mean, the Panther-Lair Show, I think it's sort of remarkable that we can, we do an hour every week of just all Pitt stuff. And it's not hard to get there. You know what I mean? I don't feel like we ever really scrounge for topics. I mean, you guys always have questions and comments and topics to discuss. I've always got things that I want to talk about, that I'll talk about for a while. And then you guys jump in with comments and questions. And we always find things to fill an hour. We always find things to talk about. And some nights, like the last time we got together after the ACC championship game, we go like 80 minutes or something. I think that was the longest live stream we've done. I don't know if we've ever gotten to 90 minutes, but we had, I think the final time ended up being like 79 minutes and change or something like that. So we got a solid like 80 minutes of content that night. And not even content. I shouldn't call it content. It's discussion. We had 80 minutes of discussion talking about Pitt winning the ACC championship game. And there was part of me that thought, all right, that was cool. That was a lot of fun. And we'll have a lot to talk about. I'm sure when we come around to Wednesday, we'll talk about the Peach Bowl, and we'll talk about, recruiting stuff. There's going to be a lot to discuss, I'm sure, and more bowl, or more ACC championship game wrap up. And, I was sure we would have content. We'd have topics to discuss. We'd have things to talk about on tonight's show. But then the last 2 days happened. And now I'm starting to wonder if we're going to push that 80-minute mark again on this week's show. I mean, I don't even know if we need to recite the news. I think a podcast like this, a talk show, I tend to think of this podcast as a talk show. I think there's different types of podcasts that are out there. There's sort of the documentary-style podcasts. Serial, is sort of, I think one of the more famous ones. Dr. Death was great. I listened to that podcast. I really enjoyed it. S-Town was a weird one. I guess most of the podcasts that I've listened to, documentary-style podcasts, are from 5 years ago or so, or thereabouts. But I mean, there's those documentary-style podcasts, and then, there's also these sort of talk show podcasts, and I mean, some are interviews. I don't know if they're, it's probably not the most popular subset of podcasts to have one where it's almost like a radio talk show. And we just do it once a week, and the host, I guess, talks for a while, and then there's sort of interaction between the listeners and the host. I think it's a smaller subset of podcasts, but I think it fits well for what we want to do, because week to week, there's news, and there are new things that come out, and new things to discuss, and old topics to discuss, and, it fits well. You know what I mean? I think we have a good format for our shows here on the Panther-Lair Show. But every now and then, you almost get surprised by how much news there is, And so you sit down, and I guess when I sit down on an episode like tonight, where we've obviously got a lot to discuss, and we've got some big topics to cover, I'm like, well, should I recount all the news? Should I go through everything? Or does everybody already know? I guess I've wasted more time wondering if I should say, break down the news. I've wasted more time doing that than I would have if I just said it. Mark Whipple's gone, and Kenny Pickett doesn't know if he's playing in the bowl game. That was really quick. We're never going to get to 80 minutes if we do it that way. I better get away from the whole brevity thing here, nice and quick, because I'm gonna blow through all the topics if I handle everything that quickly. I mean, these are major changes for Pitt football. These are major pieces of news, and I came into this week. Sunday morning when I got up after the ACC championship game, I thought about some things I wanted to write. I put a sort of column-like piece up on the front page first thing Sunday morning, based on a lot of the things that I talked about Saturday night. When I sat down on the podcast, sat down for our post-game live stream, it was funny because as I went to sit down, I was like, all right, what am I going to start off with? Do I want to talk about defense? Do I want to talk about Kenny Pickett? Do I want to talk about Jordan Addison? What do I want to... And I was like, you know what? Screw all that. I want to talk about the fans, because you guys, you experience that. Players play, coaches coach, and the fans experience. And you've experienced a lot of things over the years. And so I wanted to start off with that. And when I woke up Sunday morning, I was still thinking about those thoughts. And so I wrote some things there, and Jim Hammett was in Charlotte for us, and he provided some great content. We filled up through the day, but my eye was really toward the week and covering recruiting. Because this time now, once the season actually ends, and for a lot of teams it started last week when their regular season ended, they didn't play in a conference championship game. Once the season ends, the coaches go out on the road recruiting. This is a big time of year, and this is a fun time of year to cover things because there are things happening sort of constantly in recruiting, in-home visits happening, and guys going to school visits and official visits and all these different things. And it's exciting and it's fun to cover, and you spend all day tracking down as much info as you can, and then you write it all up in a long write-up every morning. It's fun, and I was looking forward to diving into that, and I did dive into it. We dove into it on Monday, man, and we had a big update and all this stuff, and we dove into it on Tuesday, man. We had this big update, and then Tuesday afternoon, and our guy Johnny McGonigal, Post-Gazette, reports Mark Whipple resigned Tuesday morning. He's gone. And then come questions about Kenny Pickett. And Kenny Pickett goes on the Dan Patrick Show on Wednesday morning. Today, I guess it was. Seems like it was 2 days ago, but it was 12 hours ago. And he says he has not made up his mind about whether or not he'll play in the Peach Bowl. And then I guess he was on the Fan this afternoon and said he has not made up his mind about it. He's going to play in the Peach Bowl. It's something he's still deciding. He has to talk it over with his family. He just got back to New Jersey. He was in Pittsburgh, I think, until Tuesday morning. I think he just went back to Jersey yesterday and wants to talk it over with his family. And so 2 major pieces of news that come out in a week that was expected to be pretty newsworthy, in terms of coverage and certainly with recruiting. And it ends up turning into a week that's still a lot of recruiting news, but kind of getting overshadowed right now. And I know that it's getting overshadowed because I put a couple things in this morning's recruiting update that I thought would get at least a reaction of some kind. A former decommit, or a former commit who decommitted not too long ago might still end up in the recruiting class, and that really didn't even cause a blip on the radar. That little note. And I was surprised by that. Maybe I'll have to go back and check the thread and see if it did show up on the board, if people did react to that or respond to that. But the focus is all on this. The focus is all on how this impacts Pitt in the Peach Bowl, what it means for Pitt's chances of finishing the season 12-2 as not just ACC champions, but Peach Bowl champions, because you know how these bowl games like to crown their champion. Instead of just the Peach Bowl winner, it's the Peach Bowl champion. Pitt's chances of going 12-2, Pitt's chances of winning the Peach Bowl. I don't know if you want to say they took a hit, but you could probably say they took a hit. If you're going to end up not having Kenny Pickett on the field, your chances of winning any game diminish significantly, let alone this game. And so it's major news and it's big news. And the thing I thought before sat down here tonight is, we all have a lot of questions. And those questions form the basis for the topics we're going to discuss on this, over the course of this hour here. A lot of questions. I don't know that I have a lot of answers, but I'm here to discuss the questions and here to talk to you about the questions because they're big ones. And I guess the first question that you start with, and I know you guys are rolling in on the chat, and there's lots of chats coming in. There's lots of super chats. I love it. We will get to you in just a couple minutes because I want to cover these things just for a little bit here before we go, before we get in. I want to sort of lay the groundwork of what we're really talking about here and what we're discussing, and then we'll jump into comments and the questions and everything. I think the first question, obviously the biggest question is, will Kenny Pickett play in the Peach Bowl? And we'll get to that in a second. All right, let's start with the biggest question, which is Mark Whipple leaving. Why did Mark Whipple leave? And I think, and I put this on the message board, and kind of my read on this. And look, I'm saying this at Wednesday night at 8:41 p.m. By the time we get done with this live stream, there may be new information that comes to light, new situation, new view on the situation, and we'll take a different approach, or we'll have a different perspective on it. But what I put on the message board and what I think to be true is throughout this season, it's become kind of clear that it's sort of headed toward a separation, that Mark Whipple's not going to be back next year. We know, I think we all know, and I think we've discussed that Mark Whipple really wasn't going to be back this year, but ultimately Kenny Pickett's decision to return sort of hinged on Whipple coming back. And I don't know if it goes to the point of Kenny saying, I'm not coming back unless Whipple's here. But, I even had the conversation with Kenny at one point on the Kenny Pickett show where he said that, he would not have come back if it wasn't Mark Whipple. He wasn't coming back to learn a new offense. He wasn't coming back to break in a new coordinator. He was coming back to work with Mark Whipple for one more season. And so I think one did hinge on the other. And I think that if there's no Pickett, then there's no Whipple. And if there's no Whipple, then there's no Pickett. It really works both ways. And so I think as you went through the 2021 season, Kenny Pickett's final year, it was pretty clear that Mark Whipple probably wasn't going to be back in 2022, that there was going to be a separation, partially of his desire, partially of Pat Narduzzi's desire to move on, start anew, get a new coordinator, and do some different things with the offense. And so you have that, okay? And I think it's understood, and I think he was gonna recruit for Pitt, this 1 week that they could be out on the road, help them try and get in with some transfer quarterbacks. I think get his foot in the door with some transfer quarterbacks and then draw them over to Narduzzi, potentially get them on campus for a visit, and then, kind of work the situation forward from there. Pitt got Max Brown as a grad transfer a few years ago when there wasn't a coordinator. I think I would have to go back and look at the timeline, but I think Max Brown committed to Pitt when they didn't have an offensive coordinator, and he did it because of his trust in Pat Narduzzi and his belief in Pat Narduzzi. And, there have been so many offensive coordinator changes that, pretty much each time there was some quarterback who was going to have to put their faith in Pat Narduzzi, if they were going to stick with Pitt. And I'm trying to think. Thomas McVitie did it in 2016 after Jim Chaney left. Kenny Pickett did it in 2000, with the 2017 class after Matt Canada left, and Pickett ultimately signed and enrolled in January when Sean Watson hadn't even been hired yet. 2019, I guess Davis Bevell, right, was recruited by and committed to Sean Watson. Watson gets fired. Bevell is already on if not on campus, he had already signed, and he was enrolling early. Watson got fired after the Sun Bowl, so, probably a week or so before Bevell was going to enroll. Anyway, putting these guys put their faith in Narduzzi. And so I think that was probably the plan, that Whipple was at least going to recruit through this week and try to sort of get the ball rolling on a transfer quarterback. And we saw him out there on Monday night. The photo came out that he was, doing an in-home visit with Chubba Purdy, the Arizona native. Whipple has a house in Arizona. He was out in Arizona, visited Purdy. Purdy's a Florida State transfer who's in the portal and a pretty good-looking prospect. I think he could be really good and would be a great fit at Pitt and, would do really well in Pitt's offense. And Whipple's out there visiting him. Well, apparently also while Whipple was in Arizona, this is by all accounts from what we've heard on the Nebraska side of things, Scott Frost came out and interviewed him, probably on Sunday night. Things move around, word travels in coaching circles. Pat Narduzzi catches wind of it. They speak about it and decide that it's time to move on right now. Not wait till the end of the week, not wait till the end of the semester, not wait until January. The time to move on is right now. I get it. I get why that would happen. I get why that decision was made. I get why both sides were ready to move on. I don't get... I shouldn't say I don't get why Mark Whipple would go to Nebraska. I kind of do get why Mark Whipple would go to Nebraska. I think when it first came out that he was possibly going to Nebraska, the reaction a lot of people had was, why the hell would you go to Nebraska? They're going to get fired in a year. How much longer does Scott Frost have at Nebraska? It's been a disaster there. If not a disaster, it's been a failure there. They haven't succeeded. They haven't achieved at the level that they expected when they hired him. And he might only have one more year. And so a lot of people, myself included, thought, what is Whipple thinking? Why would he go to a job where they might get fired in a year? Well, as has been pointed out, Whipple's going to make a bunch of cash, maybe like $1 million a year, maybe on like a 3-year deal. You get fired in a year. I don't know what the details of the contract are. You definitely get the $1 million for the first year. And maybe you get some more off the back end of those other 2 years. Maybe you get 3 years worth of salary for working 1 year. And then you can retire. And I don't think Mark Whipple is thinking that. Thinking, I'm going to take this job. I'm going to get a full salary for 1 year. I'm going to get 3 years salary for working 1 year because these goofballs are getting fired. I don't think Mark Whipple's thinking that. but it doesn't make it the worst possible career move. Plus, Lincoln, Nebraska is a whole lot closer to the home he keeps in Arizona than Pittsburgh is, right? It's a lot easier to get there. It's a lot closer to get there. And I think he's got some family considerations to think about. I think that's, it's been discussed quite a bit that he might have some things kind of drawing him, making him want to be a little bit closer to home. So, all those things kind of make sense. Now, I'll tell you what doesn't make sense. And I'll tell you the biggest issue I have probably in this whole thing. A bigger issue than Kenny Pickett's uncertainty, bigger issue than the decision to part ways with Mark Whipple or his resignation, any of these things. My biggest problem, the thing that makes the least amount of sense to me, is not coaching the bowl game. I don't understand why Mark Whipple isn't coaching the Peach Bowl. And I know he's got a new job, but we have seen, around the country and very specifically right here, we have seen coaches stay through the bowl game. Now, Paul Chryst famously didn't stay through the bowl game to coach the Armed Forces Bowl after he took the head coaching job at Wisconsin. However, when he was hired to be head coach at Pitt, he did stay to coach Wisconsin's offense in the Rose Bowl. When Pat Narduzzi was hired to be head coach at Pitt, he stayed and coached Michigan State's defense in the Cotton Bowl. Right now, Ohio State just hired Oklahoma State's defensive coordinator, and he's going to stay and coach the defense for the Cowboys in the Fiesta Bowl. Coordinators typically stay and finish the job. Even if they're going to be a head coach, as was the case with Chryst and Narduzzi. So it's very strange to me that he is not finishing the job. It's very curious to me that he's not going to coach the Peach Bowl. And it's probably the part of this whole thing that makes the least amount of sense, unless there was, in the course of what we talked about that happened over the last 48 hours, the 48 hours Sunday morning through Tuesday morning, if those things that we talked about, and the interactions between Narduzzi and Whipple became contentious and possibly adversarial, maybe that leads both parties to say, just go away. Right? And I'm speculating here, but I'm looking at it and I'm trying to figure out why this guy would leave without finishing the season and coaching. Matt Canada stayed and called the plays in the Pinstripe Bowl. Right? He was leaving Pitt to be the offensive coordinator at LSU, but he still called the plays in the Pinstripe Bowl against Northwestern. Why is this guy going? I think Jim Chaney left. I believe Tim Salem called the plays in the Military Bowl in 2015. So maybe that's an example that doesn't line up here. But ultimately, I don't understand why Whipple's going. Again, unless the only real kind of conclusion that sort of makes sense is that something passed between him and Narduzzi. But again, that's speculation. It's conjecture. But that's what we do here. Like I said at the top, it's like a talk show, right? So we kind of throw some stuff out there, and I'm not saying that's what happened. But I'm trying to, as there are questions that I'm trying to answer here, there are things I'm trying to figure out. That's the biggest question for me. Why aren't you coaching the bowl game? And if you ask that question to Mark Whipple and his answer is, well, I was told not to coach the bowl game, then the question goes to Pat Narduzzi. Why isn't he coaching the bowl game? Because all the other questions to me are secondary. Now, that's not to say I don't have questions about Kenny Pickett. I certainly do have questions about Kenny Pickett. We'll get to that in a second. But this question about Whipple, because his decision not to coach the bowl game has seemingly thrown things into a tailspin. Now, that brings us to the matter of Pickett. Okay, Kenny Pickett, not sure if he's going to play in the Peach Bowl. And he says that on Wednesday, 24 hours or so after news comes out that Mark Whipple has resigned, probably 24 hours after Whipple resigns, right? And so inevitably, headlines, assumption is, in light of Whipple's departure, Pickett doesn't know if he wants to play in the bowl game anymore. And I don't know about that. I don't know, for me, if I'm connecting the dots there just yet. And maybe I am. Or maybe the dots are there to be connected. Maybe the dots are there to be connected that Whipple's not coaching it, and so Pickett's not sure if he wants to play in it. But here's my question. What's the reason that players skip bowl games? What's the number one reason? And there's really only one reason why guys do this. It's to avoid injury, right? So, answer me this. How do you become either more or less what's the word I'm looking for? Not prone. Vulnerable. How do you become more or less vulnerable to injury depending on the coordinator? If it's Tim Salem calling the plays, are you more likely to get hurt than if it was Mark Whipple? You know, if Pickett ends up skipping this bowl game because he wants to protect himself for the NFL draft, and I don't have an issue with that. If you want to do it, do it. You know, I mean, like, if you want to sit down and say, well, what really is to be gained out of this bowl game? I mean, you're probably right. What's to be gained out of any of these bowl games? You know, why does anybody play in these bowl games at all? What is there to be gained other than team wins and playing together, teammates and all that stuff? I think there are things, you know, I understand it, why guys choose not to play in bowl games. I understand it more when you're choosing not to play in the BBVA Compass Bowl because, you know, I think these New Year's Six bowls do carry a fair amount of prestige, and it's something, you know, it's a unique experience and one that I would think you would want to take advantage of. But I get it. If you say, look, I love my team, love my teammates, love my coaches, love competing. My time here has been amazing. I wouldn't be the person I am if I hadn't come to this school. But I need to make a business decision. And my business decision is to protect myself, to go start training, and get ready for the Senior Bowl and the Combine and ultimately the NFL Draft. I understand that. It's fine. I don't have an issue with it. I really don't. But I don't know how the change at coordinator makes that. I don't know how that makes your decision. And so here's what I've been thinking a little bit. And again, this is speculation. I could be completely wrong about this. I told you at the top that we had a lot of questions, not a lot of answers. But I don't have all the answers, but I'm willing to discuss the questions. And here's what I'm kind of thinking. Because what did Kenny Pickett say after the ACC championship game? He was asked, are you going to play in the bowl game? He said, I plan to play. Right? It's a direct quote. I plan to play. I plan on playing. Something like that. And when he said that, when I read that quote, and I haven't gone back and watched the video, I haven't heard the audio to check out voice inflection, or did he roll his eyes, or did he have a tell or something like that? Did he twist the Oreos in a certain way that gave away that he was bluffing or anything like that? But just the words. I plan to play. I plan on playing, whatever it is. That doesn't sound like the kind of 100% commitment that you would give if you were certain you were going to play. And I almost there and I noticed that at the time. I had that sort of instant reaction when I read that. And then as I kind of have thought about it in the last couple of days, I almost wonder if in that moment Kenny Pickett really didn't know if he was going to play. He didn't have his decision made at that point. I wonder. And I wonder if he's sitting there. He's at a press conference after his team just won the ACC championship to go 11-2. This is an incredible, monumental moment. And how much of a bummer would it be to be like, no, I'm not sure yet. I don't know, or I'm not going to play. And again, conjecture, speculation. I just wonder if he really, because we all read that quote and said, see, he's in, he's playing, no doubt about it. I just wonder. I wonder about that. I wonder about the timeline. I wonder about how convicted he was. I wonder about how dead set on it he was. And I wonder where he's at right now with it. Talking about still trying to make his decision. I guess at this point, we're all kind of expecting him not to play, right? That's another one. Don't have all the answers, but we'll discuss the questions. Will he play? I don't know. And he said twice in public now that he doesn't know, that he hasn't made his decision. I think he probably went into that game on Saturday. It wouldn't surprise me if he went into that game on Saturday, the ACC title game, not thinking about a bowl game at all. Thinking that he knew he was going to stick around Pittsburgh for a day or two, Sunday, Monday, and then go back to New Jersey and talk it over with his family and try and make the bet, and probably talk it over with some representatives and that kind of thing, and make the best decision. Decide what really made the most sense. I kind of believe that could be the case. In the heat of the moment, after the game, he gives an answer that I think you could read in a certain way as non-committal. Or at least, if it leans one way, if it's better than 50-50, it's like 65-35 or 70-30 or something like that. And so, but it's hard for me to kind of make sense of the thought that it's just about Whipple. That because Whipple is gone, and because Whipple is not coaching the bowl game, now Kenny's not sure if he's going to play. It just doesn't line up to me because, again, the rationale is you don't want to get hurt. The rationale is you need to protect, you have to make a business decision at this point. And I understand that. I just don't see how Mark Whipple is in that equation. Yes, Pickett is very close to Whipple. Yes, Pickett, like we just said, Pickett came back because of Whipple. He would not have come back if Mark Whipple was not the coordinator. But that was a year ago, heading into a full season. This is one game at the end of the year. And if your concern is injury, I don't know how the coordinator change impacts that. All right. Let's get into comments and questions. I've prattled on for long enough. Everybody's got comments and questions. We got a lot of super chatters who jumped in here. I love it. This is, this is great. I have a lot of, there's a lot of things to talk about. I do have to tell you real quick about home field, just because, you guys are all here, you're listening, and we still have at least a half hour left of this show, so you can't all bail when I start talking about this. But check out this is my Hawaii Rainbow Warriors sweatshirt, because it's been like 25 degrees all day, so I have to wear a sweatshirt instead of a t-shirt. I usually have one of the vintage rock shirts or the warm up to Victory Lights shirt. But Pitt, the Pitt shirts are awesome at Home Field. It's homefieldapparel.com is the website. And they're just, it's great stuff. You've heard me talk about it. It's super high quality. Sweatshirts, here's the thing about sweatshirts, all right? I always talk about how the t-shirts keep their shape. Here's the thing about sweatshirts. When you wash them and you dry them, they lose their shape. They don't hold the elastic at the bottom. They start like flowing out. They just lose their shape. They don't look as good as they did when you got them. I've washed this home field sweatshirt a bunch of times over the last couple of years, and it still fits just as perfect as it did the first day I got it. And it's soft. And again, check out that logo. Shout out to Todd Graham, right? The Hawaii Rainbow Warriors sweatshirt. You can't go wrong. Homefieldapparel.com. They've got great Pitt designs, and it's on a super high quality shirt, t-shirts and sweatshirts. And listen, if it's your first time shopping at Home Field, promo code LAIR, L-A-I-R, you get 15% off. LAIR, L-A-I-R, 15% off. Okay? Homefieldapparel.com. They've got incredible Pitt stuff. Incredible. I was just looking at it the other day. It's so good. All right, let's get into some comments and questions. Homer Simpson hit it first. He says, I don't know about you, but I'm over here celebrating Mark Whipple resigning. Got a cold one and a fat one ready. RJCman38 is the super chatter, and he says the same thing. Dude, I'm one happy Pitt football fan right now. Yeah, you guys are pumped up. Look, I'm glad you don't have to suffer through watching the third highest scoring offense in FBS this year anymore. I'm glad that the guy who called the plays for the second highest scoring offense in Power 5, an offense that scored 43 points per game, I'm glad you don't have to suffer through that anymore. I am happy for you guys that you don't have to be subjected to the play calling of a man who, whose plays and whose offense, led to a Heisman Trophy finalist, a Biletnikoff Award finalist, a Maxwell Award finalist, a Walter Camp Trophy finalist, Johnny Unitas Award winner, Davey O'Brien Award finalist. I'm glad. I'm happy. I am relieved for you that you don't have to watch this Broyles Award finalist anymore. I'm happy for you guys. I really am. And for, what? I admire the dedication. For people who have spent this year, Okay, because, yeah, Pitt's offense stunk the last 2 seasons. No question about it. But for the people, for you guys who said, damn it, I am committed to hating Mark Whipple, and I will not back off of that. I will not come off my dislike of Mark Whipple and his offense, no matter how many points they score, no matter how many times they hang 40 on another team, no matter how many games they win. I am not going to back off my hate of this guy. I don't love it. I admire your dedication. Your commitment to the bit is almost as effective as Mark Whipple's offense. So good on you guys. Good on you guys. Congratulations. Super chatters. Let's see here. DJ Dennison's a super chatter. Just says take my money. All right, buddy. If you've got anything, if you have anything to say, chime in. I'd like to hear it. Tim Spader is a super chatter. Tim, you have anything to say? I don't see any comments here, Tim. You can be a super chatter too. You can click that $sign down at the bottom. Contribute to the podcast. Oh, here's Tim. Tim says, please share your insights on how the offensive coordinator vacancy will impact Pitt's search for a quarterback transfer in 2022. So this is a pretty relevant fallout, right? This is a pretty relevant impact of Mark Whipple's departure and the timing of it. The fact that he left on Monday. Because, look, Nick Patty, Davis Bevel, Joey Yellen, Nate Arnell. I'm intrigued by these guys, to varying amounts. I think we've seen Yellen. I don't know if we can really count on a lot out of him. I think you've seen Nick Patty, and as sort of weird as it looks at times, seems to get it done. I don't think he's going to throw the ball the way Kenny Pickett did. All right, I'm sidetracking here. Here's the thing, all right? For Pitt in 2022, okay, their offense, for the love of God, run the ball more. Really, run the ball more. I'm going to give you a little preview. In the 3-2-1 column this week, 3 things we know, 2 questions we have, 1 prediction. You know what I'm going to tell you? My prediction, Izzy Abanikanda is a first-team All-ACC running back next year. I think that guy has the talent to be the best running back in the conference. I absolutely believe that. I really do. And I mean, I think you probably do too. You watch him run. It seems like every time he has the ball in his hands, something good happens. I'm actually going to go through. I'll see if I actually do it. I want to go through and chart every time he touched the ball and see how many times he actually lost yardage. Because it can't be many. He's just so effective. And the run blocking helped. I think the run blocking was better than we expected it to be this year. But he makes plays. Time after time after time, he makes plays. Taking handoffs or catching passes. You need a kickoff return for a touchdown. This is one of the most dynamic players on the team. There were three guys I would put at the top of the list for the most dynamic players on the team this past season. It's Jordan Addison, it's Kenny Pickett, and it's Izzy Abanikanda. And I'm not sure that he's number 3 on that list. I think he can be a stud. And so you bring in whoever you bring in to call the offense next year, you've got to use those guys more. And if you're able to use Abanikanda more, if you do utilize Rodney Hammond more, if you do rely on Vincent Davis more, and really just the running game in general with those guys, then you maybe need a little bit less of those superstar highlight reel passes. Also, you've got a guy in Jordan Addison who is a stud wide receiver. Biletnikoff winner is my expectation. I think he'll win the Biletnikoff tomorrow night. I think he should. I think he's been the best receiver in the country. 17 friggin' touchdowns. 8 catches for $126 or whatever it was in the conference championship game. He's a stud. And you're going to be throwing to him. And so, a guy like Nick Patty, maybe he doesn't make all the throws Pickett makes. But when you've got a great receiver like Addison, you've got a really good young up-and-coming tight end in Gavin Bartholomew. You've got a bunch of other receivers around Addison like Jalen Barden and Jared Wayne and Jaden Bradley. And then you've got those running backs, plus who knows how many of the starting offensive linemen you're going to bring back. Could bring back a number of them. It doesn't seem like it's an impossible situation to get by with a quarterback who's not quite on the level of Kenny Pickett. If you can get a quarterback who understands the offense, can operate the offense, and has the offense tailored to his strengths, I think they have all the pieces in place to be really good again. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't think they'll look at transfer options. I think they will go after a transfer quarterback. They obviously showed that they were interested in one to begin with when Mark Whipple visited Chubba Purdy. And I have to think that pursuit will continue. They're going to keep going after somebody and try and bring someone in. And maybe that's a reflection on Nick Patty and Davis Bevell and those guys. Maybe it's just a reflection of the coaches looking at it and saying, we've got all these guys. We're not going to have Jared Wayne after next year unless he comes back with his COVID season in 23. Not going to have Jordan Addison after next year. Definitely going to lose some offensive linemen after the 22 season. Got a chance here to capitalize and strike and maybe win 10 games again. Maybe win the Coastal in back-to-back years. We need to bring in someone who can do that. And so if there's a good option out there in the transfer portal, you go get him. Now, losing your offensive coordinator kind of screws it up a little bit. All right, Purdy, since he had Mark Whipple in his house on Monday night, you only get one in-home visit per week with a recruit. So Pitt can't go back into his house until like mid-January. And I'm guessing that kid wants to enroll in January. I think a lot of these guys who are already in the transfer portal would like to get into a school in January so they can be there for spring camp. And so it gets a little more complicated. Now, you can maybe get him in on an official visit, but really what you're going to have to do between now, if you're going to try and get a transfer quarterback in for the spring semester, you're going to have to do it over Zoom and FaceTime. Unless they've got somebody that they're bringing in this weekend, you're going to have to do it over Zoom and FaceTime, in the next 3 weeks, 4 weeks, which is not impossible. I think Nate Yarnell met the coaches in person for the first time when he actually enrolled in January. He'd never met him before in person. We've all learned, I think, over the last year, 2 years, that you can do a lot of these things virtually, that you can do a lot of these things on Zoom and on FaceTime. That things that you previously thought you had to be in person for, or you needed to be face-to-face with someone in the same room to build a relationship. I think you're finding that you can do some of these things on FaceTime. You can do them while staring at a screen. And it sucks a little bit. It's not nearly as fulfilling as being in the room with someone. But it is, it can be done. And that's what Pat Narduzzi's going to have to do. Now, it is also harder to recruit a guy when you don't have a coordinator. And so, again, this is going to come back to Pat Narduzzi being the sales, the point of contact here. You know what I mean? And the one who really makes the sales pitch. If he doesn't get someone hired in the next 2 weeks. Now, maybe they hire someone in the next week and a half, maybe 2 weeks max. And I think week and a half would be the ideal timeline if you can pull it off. And then that guy is able to spend 2 weeks working on some contacts that he has, some quarterbacks he might already know who are in the portal, and work on those guys and try to get them in. That's probably your best case scenario for getting a transfer quarterback in here now. It does kind of throw a wrench into some of those plans. And some of those, throw a wrench into the gears, right? That's going to make it, it's going to be a lot, it's going to be more difficult, and it's going to have to look a little different than it would have otherwise. Biz, as a super chatter, says, it makes sense. I'm glad for what Kenny Pickett is given. I'll support whatever his choice is. Yeah, the reality is, Kenny Pickett, I can understand if you're disappointed if Kenny Pickett decides not to play in the bowl game. I can totally understand that. If you were disappointed about it, particularly if you were thinking about going to Atlanta, if that might influence your decision, if you'd be disappointed not to go, not to be able to see him, if it makes it less appealing to go watch Pitt without Kenny Pickett, I can understand that. I don't think it dooms Pitt's chances against Michigan State. What did we all say about Michigan State from the very start, from the time that matchup was announced? Well, Michigan State's offense is based on running the ball, and their defense is not very good at stopping the pass. And we all felt like that was a great matchup for Pitt because Pitt's defense, what they do is stop the run. That's what they're built to do and is what they're pretty good at doing. And the offense is obviously a pass-heavy offense. You throw that a little bit into a gray area when you take Kenny Pickett and Mark Whipple out of the equation, but I still think there are quite a few favorable matchups here for Pitt's offense against Michigan State's, not even just Pitt's offense, but I think there are some favorable matchups for Pitt against Michigan State. So, I'm not chalking this up as a loss just yet, but it obviously is going to be more difficult if you don't have Kenny Pickett. To Biz's point, I can understand if you're disappointed if Kenny Pickett doesn't play, but I think you have to look at the body of work and say, this guy's been pretty good for Pitt. He's done a pretty good job, in his time at Pitt. And if he decides he wants to go out like that, if you feel like that's his, if he feels like that's his best option, then, kudos to him. He didn't go mid-year. He didn't go, he didn't bail before the season or anything like that. He played through a full season, played through pain at various points, and he was a little banged up in that I think in the ACC championship game, but fought through it and had a heck of a season. He had the best season by a quarterback in Pitt history, which is saying something. That's the have it both ways that I keep coming up with, is that Dan Marino is still the best quarterback in Pitt history, but Kenny Pickett had the best season by a Pitt quarterback in school history. Let's see. What else? A lot of people are appreciating my Mark Whipple. For all the people who hated Mark Whipple all that time, that's good. I'm glad you appreciated that. Let's see here. All right, let's get through some comments and questions. A lot of people jumping in here. I think I got through all the super chatters. If I miss one, I apologize. I'll keep an eye out for it as I move through. If you want to be a super chatter, you can hit the little dollar sign there at the bottom. Support the podcast. We very much appreciate that. Sports World PA says, I agree. People forget that Mark Whipple's offense led the country in drops 2 years in a row and was at the bottom of the NCAA in rushing most of his time here. Yeah, look, the offense was bad in 2019 and 2020. The offense cost them the Boston College game. The offense cost them the Miami game in 2019. That's 2 losses that the offense cost them. And they waited until the very, very end of the Eastern Michigan game to finally show any signs of life. 2020, I put the Boston College and NC State losses squarely on the offense. I really do. I think the offense blew both of those games. That's 4 games over those 2 seasons that I would put the losses squarely on the offense. And you can put that criticism on Mark Whipple. And I'm absolutely on board with putting that criticism on Mark Whipple. But I think you still have to look at it and say, this was an offense that was number 1 in the nation at one point this season. Finished the season after the conference championship games number 3 in the nation in scoring offense. Not total offense, not yards, points. And they only got, it's not like they got, the 2016 offense scored a lot of touchdowns, but they, I think they set the Pitt record for points per game, which this offense, I believe, passed. But that offense, that team in 2016 got a bunch of special teams touchdowns, and that helped boost it up. This was all offense. They got what? Servassier Dennis. I guess they had 3, right? Servassier Dennis had the shovel pass he picked off. Eric Hallett had the pick 6 in the ACC title game, and then Izzy Abanikanda had the kick return for a touchdown. I forgot if they had one more defensive touchdown or not. But this was all offense. And it's a credit to Mark Whipple. And the play of Kenny Pickett is a credit to Mark Whipple. And the success of Jordan Addison. These things are a credit to Mark Whipple. You can say he sucked for 2 years, but he was really good this year. It's okay. You can say that. You can give him credit for the things that he's done well. Benjamin Glazer says, I'm not mad or anything at the will Kenny play or won't he talk. I'm just disappointed. It's deflating in a way. Looking forward to destroying the Spartans and now stuck talking this nonsense. Well, see, here's my thing. And I'm not going to say that the Peach Bowl doesn't matter. That's not going to be my point. Pitt absolutely should finish this season at 12-2, win the Peach Bowl. I mean, it would be the perfect capper to this season. But guess what? They're still going to get the ACC championship trophy. They're still going to have at least 11 wins. They still won 10 games in the regular season for the first time in 40 years. Kenny Pickett still broke all of those records. Jordan Addison's going to add, and I think Kenny Pickett probably will too. I think he's going to have a real chance of getting either the Maxwell or the Walter Camp. There's going to be more hardware brought into that building that says, for the 2021 season. And they're going to be able to recruit on all of that. They're going to have success on all of that. I've seen a lot of talk about this just kills all the momentum, and Pitt was, this is going to hurt them so much. It's going to, if they lose to Michigan State, it's going to be a bummer on, kill all the recruiting momentum. Listen, guys, you've heard me talk week after week about recruiting and how a successful season impacts the next year's recruiting class and all of that. And I use 2018 as an example all the time, right? How they won the Coastal and they were able to recruit on that success and build that 2020 class on the strength of that season. You know what I mean? Like that was a really good recruiting class with Izzy Abanikanda and Jordan Addison and Dayon Hayes and Solomon DeShields was in that class and Kamara was in that class and Javonte Royal was in that. Like it's a really good recruiting class. And it was built on the strength of that 2018 season. And that season ended with them losing 3 games in a row. Right? I mean, they lost the Miami game at the end of the regular season. They got killed by Clemson in the ACC championship game. And they lost a dud of a game against Stanford in the Sun Bowl. And they were still able to recruit off the success of winning the Coastal. They're going to go into the spring, whether they win the Peach Bowl or not, with recruiting momentum. And the fans will feel like it's garbage. The fans will feel like it's a lousy season and all this. But every recruit they bring for a visit in January, for like a junior day in January, or for a spring camp visit in March or April, for an official visit in June, they're going to march them past the ACC championship trophy and any awards that Jordan Addison and Kenny Pickett bring in. And they're going to say, yo, either we went 12-2 or we went 11-3. We were ACC champs. Watch this highlight. This is us getting the trophy. This is what we do at Pitt. And if they win the Peach Bowl, guess what? That becomes part of the presentation too. And if they don't, guess what? That kind of actually becomes part of the presentation too as a this is what we can do. This is where we can go. This is what we can get to. Because they even did that in 2018. They lost to Clemson, but they still said, look, we got to that stage. We were able to get there and we'll get there again and we'll keep it going. And maybe we'll have better success next time. And it ultimately ended up being true. So I understand, Ben, like kind of what you're getting at. Benjamin Glazer talking about how it's deflating in a way. I think, the storybook ending to this thing is everybody goes to the Peach Bowl and they destroy Michigan State and, they win 45-14 or something like that. And it's a perfect fitting ending to this season. That would be ideal. That would be perfect. It could still end up being really, really good. I like I say, I don't think this matchup all of a sudden automatically goes in Michigan State's favor. Just just because Kenny Pickett, if Kenny Pickett ultimately doesn't play, it'll be tougher. There's no question, but I don't think it's a guarantee. Let's see. William Schroeder says, I think Mark Whipple's pass-happy offense really only works if you have a great quarterback. The next offensive coordinator will hopefully bring a more balanced offense. Yeah, I mean, I think you're right, William. I think you need a good quarterback. And that could go for a lot of offensive systems these days, that they really only work at their highest level if you have a great quarterback, if you have really strong play at the quarterback position. But I think there's a happy medium where you can find quarterbacks who are just okay. They're effective. They're efficient. They can run the offense. I don't think anybody would say Nathan Peterman was one of the best quarterbacks in Pitt history. I mean, maybe, top 10, maybe. But he could run the offense. He had a big enough arm. He could make some throws. He could run around a little bit, and he had a good feel for the offense, and he could run the offense. And that actually should give you a little bit of confidence and encouragement heading into this whole thing that whoever they bring in here, Peterman did that in his first year working with Matt Canada. If you can get the right guy, a smart guy who understands the offense and can operate it efficiently, I don't know if you necessarily need 2 or 3 years for it to really work. It took 2 or 3 years this time with Kenny Pickett and Mark Whipple, but I think if you bring in a new coordinator, a good coordinator, and you have a decent quarterback, whether it's a Nick Patty or Davis Bevel or a transfer you bring in, I think you can find ways to be effective. You know what I mean? I think you can make it work and make it work right off the bat, is my thought. Let's see here. We got a couple super chatters jumping in later on here. David Ruckno just sent a weird image. Okay, don't know what that means. Steve Riesbeck is a super chatter. I'm not sure if you have a question in here, Steve. If you do, I'll be sure to get to it. Kind of scrolling through, I don't see it, but I'll make sure if you got anything, we'll get it. We will get it. Let's see what else we got here. Tim Fairley had a super chat. Sorry, Tim, I missed that. He says, the silence around Whipple is deafening. No statement from either side. Nothing from Pitt wishing him well or from Mark saying goodbye. Seems odd. Well, Pitt did issue a statement, a press release. Your expected stuff. We thank him for his contributions over the last 3 years and, et cetera, et cetera. Here it is. I can read you the comment. Quote, this is a quote from Pat Narduzzi in an official press release from Pitt. Quote, during his 3 seasons at Pitt, Mark Whipple was a great asset for our entire football program. He did a tremendous job transitioning us from a heavy run attack to one of the best passing games in the entire country. His great work with quarterbacks was obviously on full display, given the outstanding year Kenny Pickett has enjoyed. I'm very grateful for Mark's time in Pittsburgh, both personally as well as professionally, and I wish him and his family the very best moving forward. End quote. So they said that. Mark Whipple didn't say anything. He wasn't a big on like tweeting or anything like that. He wasn't a big social media guy. So that's not too surprising that we haven't seen anything out of him. But I don't know. I think that's about all you're going to get. He'll probably get asked about it when he goes to Nebraska at some point. It is what it is. What was done is done. Tim Spader, who is a super chatter, he's got a question. Do you think Pitt can still attract a special quarterback talent for 2022 as a transfer? He says the Brennan Armstrong level. Okay, so I think a lot of pieces are in place. You know what I mean? And I remember talking to some people about this late in the season even, about how Pitt should be an attractive destination for a transfer quarterback. Guys should want to come here when you look at the talent that they have, when you look at what they're returning and the possibilities. Because look, this team again, run down the offense. You've got it's almost easier to list who you're losing. You're losing Taysier Mack, Trey Tipton, and Lucas Krull. For certain. For certain, you're losing those guys. Otherwise, you get another year of Jordan Addison. You get another year of Jared Wayne. You get a couple years of Gavin Bartholomew. You get a couple years of Jalen Barton and Jaden Bradley, a couple years of each of those guys. You have all these running backs. Abanikanda and Hammond have a couple years each. And then you might get a bunch of these offensive linemen back. I don't think it's, there's a possibility. I don't know how distinct it is, but there's a possibility that you could get all 5 starting offensive linemen back next year. Imagine that. That's an incredibly attractive situation for a quarterback. And then you look on defense. What are you losing on defense? You're losing linebackers. You're losing Cam Brake, Chase Pine, Phil Campbell. You imagine all those guys will leave. You lose Desmond Alexander off the defensive line. And Damari Mathis out of the secondary. Defensive line, you still bring back Deion Hayes, who I think is going to be really good. And I think you've got some young depth at defensive end. Linebackers, you're going to have to turn to some youth. You do have Servassier Dennis back, which is huge. Oh, you lose John Patrician, too. I didn't mention him. But you've got these guys like Kamara and George and DeShields. Not Leslie Smith. He went into the transfer portal today. You've got some younger guys coming up there, and then I think you've got some younger corners too that you'll be able to fill in place of Mathis. So I mean, you're replacing some talent, but you've got some talent, and I think all of that together makes it seem like Pitt should have an opportunity to have a really good season next year, and push that 10-win window again, and compete and maybe win the Coastal again. That's where Pitt should be in 2022, provided they get a quarterback. Or provided they have a quarterback who can play well, whether it's somebody who's already on the roster or a transfer who they bring in. It should be an appealing situation. But the whole hang-up is the offensive coordinator. So then it becomes on Pat Narduzzi to try and sell it to a transfer. To try and convince a guy to come in here and say, listen, I don't know who I'm hiring yet. Maybe even tell him these are the guys we're looking at. We're going to get somebody who fits your skill set. We're going to get somebody who runs something that fits with what you do well. And trust me that we're going to do that. And look at all the playmakers we have. We're going to surround you with a lot of talent. We're going to score a lot of points. We're going to have a really good team again. The one thing we're missing is a quarterback, and that could be you. And Pat Narduzzi is going to have to do that sales job until he gets somebody in to be the coordinator. Sports World PA says Brendan Marion should be the next offensive coordinator because they're not going to pay for any big name. We found that out with Canada. Rumor has it he left because they wouldn't approve $900,000. That's not true. That's just patently false. All right, I think Pitt was willing to pay Matt Canada $1 million. I believe they were. LSU was willing to pay more, and at a certain point, you can be very supportive of the program. As the athletic department, you can provide a lot of resources, but ultimately there is going to be a ceiling. And if that ceiling is $1 million a year for a coordinator, I mean, I think that's fair. I think it's fair to have that as your ceiling. So no, I don't think it's not proven that they won't pay for a big name coordinator. They'll put up the money to keep guys on, to get good coaches and keep good coaches on staff. Mark Whipple wasn't making much, but Mark Whipple was out of work. You know what I mean? I don't think they needed to pay Mark Whipple $1 million. They were willing. I think Pat Narduzzi liked what Whipple could do coming in as a quarterback developer and bringing improvements to the passing game. And they didn't need to pay him more than like $400,000 or $500,000. So they will pay, but I think it's a falsehood that's been disproven a couple times over the last few years that they won't pay. Will Z says Kenny Pickett has given all he needed for the Pitt program. It doesn't matter if he plays or not. Yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody can have any really hard feelings about. I don't think anybody can have any hard feelings about Kenny Pickett and what he's done for Pitt, even if he decides he doesn't want to stick around for the bowl game. I mean, he just led you to the best season in 40 years. And whether Pitt wins or loses the Peach Bowl is not going to change that. It is the best season in 40 years. And one of the great seasons in Pitt history. I mean, really. Royce Beacom says Pat Narduzzi's lost 3 offensive coordinators in 7 years, 2 to the SEC and now 1 to the Big Ten. Could say it's the money those conferences give, but too many rumors about working for Pat Narduzzi. Again, like I say, I think that I think this separation was going to happen with Whipple either way. I think it was kind of on the way. And so I don't know if I'd say he lost him to the Big Ten. Maybe there might be something to it with Jim Chaney as well, that they were willing to part ways after 1 year. Rumors about working for Pat Narduzzi. Here's what I said on the message board. Here's what I would say here. I think Pat Narduzzi is very demanding as a head coach. I believe that. I think he asks a lot of his guys. I think he demands a lot of his guys. I think he, as a defensive coordinator under Mark D'Antonio, there was a lot demanded of him. And I think he expects the same. I think he's probably less demanding of his players than he is of his coaches. And I think he's very demanding of his players. But I think his coaches, he holds to a certain standard. And, I think he probably can at times be difficult to work for, I would think. That's not necessarily unique in the coaching profession. There are plenty of coaches who are demanding. And some would say even that some of the most successful coaches in college football, in college sports, and maybe all sports, are as successful as they are because they're so demanding. That they demand that attention to detail. They demand that focus. They demand that you coach as if your life depends on it. And so, I mean, that's not to justify anything, but I don't know that it's necessarily... think of the best way to say it. I don't think Pat Narduzzi is necessarily unique in being very demanding with his staff, I guess is probably what I would say. Ryan Roseweir says, who do you think starts in 2022? Nick Patty, Davis Bevell, or a transfer? So many transfers hitting the market, whether it's Spencer Rattler or Dylan Gabriel. Too many to go around to not feel confident about a transfer quarterback. I don't know who's going to start. I mean, it's impossible. I'm going to sit here and say, I think it's going to be Patty. But the reality is if they get a good transfer and he wins the job, then it'll be that transfer. I've said before that I think Davis Bevell might have the highest ceiling of any quarterback on the roster. I think he had a high ceiling, in terms of just natural talent. Even when Kenny Pickett was here, he might have had a higher ceiling just in terms of natural talent, his ability to run and his arm strength. But he needs to master the offense. Or get in an offense that he can master, that can be tailored to his abilities that he can play well in. So, I mean, I can't rule him out. And obviously, if they can bring in a transfer who can win the job, that's your guy. I don't know. It's hard for me to say who I think it would be. I don't know. It's hard to say who will be the starter until we see what they bring in for a transfer. Coaster King says, what are you expecting from Rodney Gallagher's announcement tomorrow, and where would you say he's leaning right now? Yeah, Rodney Gallagher, the 4-star recruit in the class of 2023 at Laurel Highlands. We talked about him a lot. He's a 2-star or a 2-sport player, 4-star prospect, 2-sport player, football and basketball. Just outstanding player, top priority for Pat Narduzzi, and a pretty high priority for Jeff Capel as well. And I think he's making an announcement. It's probably going to be like a top schools announcement, and I would expect Pitt to make it in the top schools. I would expect Pitt to be in that group. And I think Pitt's in good shape with him. I think he has been really high on Pitt for a long time, and I would expect Pitt to stay in that position and do well, be in good shape with Gallagher. Jonathan Morgan is a super chatter. I don't think you're John Morgan, the Pitt player. I hope not. Do you think this season raises the floor of expectations for the program as a whole, or is this a one-off season where everything just worked? All right, so, I mean, a big part is that, obviously a big part of this season is that I'm just seeing people are, I think, challenging each other to a fight on in the chat, so it's pretty funny. But back to your question. Does the season raise the expectations of the program? All right, so obviously, I mean, this season was built on, the success of this season was built on the offense and Kenny Pickett. It was built on, that was what put this season over the top. There's also something to be said for the fact that this season was one where Pitt really kind of took advantage of the opportunities that were in front of it. And, so often we talk about Pitt missing opportunities or blowing opportunities, and they didn't really do that this year. I mean, there was the Western Michigan game, there was the Miami game, but for the most part, when they had an opportunity to take a step forward, they did it. And I think they did it 4 or 5 times. In different instances, whether it was the Tennessee game, whether it was, kind of that start to the ACC schedule with Georgia Tech and Virginia Tech, if it was the Clemson game, if it was beating Carolina on the Thursday night, if it was clinching against Virginia, if it was avoiding the trap game against Syracuse, if it was winning the ACC championship. They didn't blow the opportunities when the opportunities presented themselves. And, for the most part. And maybe the program takes a step forward because of that, because the players now sort of have experienced it. And I don't know, it's that learning how to win thing, learning how to finish games. I mean, they did it. They passed pretty much every test they faced this year. And so does it raise the floor of expectations for the program? I'll tell you this. All right, I'll say this, and I know we're past our hour mark. I don't know if we're going to get to 80 minutes or not, but I'll say this as far as expectations for the program in the near future. This is something that I've been thinking about a lot. Right now, you look around the Coastal Division, okay? Duke, I don't think Duke has a coach yet, and I don't know if Duke's ever really going to be all that competitive, even depending on who they hire. Georgia Tech is a mess. Who knows how much longer Jeff Collins have? He might only have 1 year left in Georgia Tech. Virginia and Virginia Tech just changed coaches. Don't really know what's going to happen in those situations. Who knows where they're really going to go? And then Miami. Oh, Carolina. Carolina, I think they've obviously recruited great. They put together amazing recruiting classes, but I think there have to be some real questions right now about whether Mac Brown still has it and what their ceiling really is with Mac Brown and how much they're really going to win. And then Miami, they change coaches. They hire Mario Cristobal, a great hire. It seems, they're hiring Clemson's athletic director. And it's probably the kind of thing we're going to forget about, but boy, was that coaching search handled horribly. I mean, imagine if they didn't get Mario Cristobal and they had to keep Manny Diaz for a year after sort of publicly, or I guess I should say a search that sort of happened in public where they were trying to replace Manny Diaz. But if they couldn't get Mario Cristobal, they were going to keep Manny Diaz for another year. Imagine, I mean, what a mess. Now, ultimately, that's not going to impact Mario Cristobal or how he does at Miami. But I think Miami right now is at a point where they need to prove that they're not going to screw it up again. They've screwed up year after year after year for so many years in a row. Outside of 2017 when they screwed it up against Pitt. They've screwed it up year after year after year. And, I'm not going to assume that Miami will be good anymore. They're going to have to prove that they actually can be good. And that they're going to have a good season. Because I'm not convinced anymore. I'm done believing in Miami. And I think Mario Cristobal is a really good coach, but no. Gonna have to see them actually do it. So when you talk about the floor of expectations for the program, I think that's something you have to consider as well. That the Coastal doesn't look like it's the Coastal looks like it is waiting for a team to step up. And why can't that team be Pitt? They've obviously got the coaching stability, the longest tenured coach in the division. I think they've recruited well. I think they've built a deep team, a talented team. I think they've built this program up. And it's in a position now where it should be, or at least it has an opportunity to kind of take control of this division for the foreseeable future. And so when you talk about raising the floor of expectations for the program, I think that's where it gets raised. It's all those factors. It's the team they have coming back. It's the success they had this year. It's the state of the division around them. There's a lot that's set up for Pitt to sort of capitalize like they did this year. We'll see if they're able to do it, but I think, the opportunity is there. I believe it is. Michael B. jumping in as a late. You guys just keep arguing in the chat. I don't know about this. I'm going to ban people from the chat. This is what you're telling me to do? Whatever. Michael B is a super chatter. He's one of our guys. I appreciate you, Michael B, for jumping in. He says, Chris, sorry I missed most of the show, so I don't know what you said about the Whipple situation. Here's my question. Will Pat Narduzzi get an extension in the offseason? Will be given a bigger budget for assistants? Yeah, I do think Pat Narduzzi is going to get a contract extension. I think it'll get, and we've said this, I think, a few times. I think he'll probably get a bump in pay, but I don't think that is the most important thing to him. I think he knows that the most important thing for moving this program forward and keeping it on the trajectory it's on is facilities, recruiting budget, and assistant coaches. I think when he goes into those contract extensions, he's going to want years, obviously, to extend the contract. So he's kind of locked in for X number of years. He'll want a little more money for himself, I'm guessing. But he's going to want an increased assistant coach budget so he can keep hiring good coaches and keep guys that he wants to keep, and then probably an increased recruiting budget, because every coach in America believes they need facilities upgrades and believes they need a higher recruiting budget. And that's just the case across the country. And every time one of these guys goes into a contract negotiation, I think they want to get more money for themselves, of course, but they want to get more money for their assistants so they can keep the guys they want, more money for the assistants so they can go hire good guys to come in, and and then more money for recruiting, and like I say, more money for facilities. They're all that's what they're always going to ask for, and I think that's what Pat Narduzzi is going to ask for, and I think that's what he's probably going to get. And because guys like Charlie Partridge are going to be hot commodities, and there is, as I said, there's a ceiling. There's always going to be a ceiling to how much Pitt is willing or able to pay for a coordinator or an assistant coach. But I don't think that necessarily means they're not committed with resources. I think they commit the resources, but you're going to hit a ceiling at some point. If you're willing to pay $1 million a year for if you're willing to pay $1 million a year for a coordinator, I think you are being competitive in trying to keep the best coaches on staff. So, yeah, I think that's what he will do. Like I say, I think he'll probably get a contract extension, and I think the bulk of it, the focus of it will be on facilities, recruiting budget, and assistant coach budget. Let's see. A couple more questions here before we roll out. I feel like I skipped over a lot, but I feel like you guys are all arguing with each other, so it's not. Zachary Herbster says, should Pitt be favorites to repeat as the Coastal champs? I mean, depending on the quarterback situation, yeah, I would think so. So, I mean, I think they should be, so I'm guessing they'll probably be third behind Virginia Tech and Miami, maybe Carolina as well. Miami will be picked to be the preseason favorite to win the Coastal, because they'll have the best returning quarterback in the division in Tyler Van Dyke. So as long as that's the case, as long as Van Dyke is at Miami, they're going to be picked to win the Coastal next year at least. So after that, we'll see. Let's see here. Joe Sherry says Davis Bevel is a 4-star recruit and played well in the spring game. I wouldn't be surprised if he earns a starting job. I like Bevel's. I like Bevel's skill set. I like how he profiles. You know what I mean? I like what he does on the field. He just needs to get it. He just needs to get the offense. He needs to master the offense, and with the new coordinator coming in, he'll have a chance to do that. All right, I guess I should answer this because it's been mentioned a few times. Mark Cadden says, odds that Brennan Marion gets promoted. Everyone seems to love him, especially players, which tells a lot in my opinion. I don't think he will. I don't think he'll be the offensive coordinator. I do not expect Brennan Marion to get the job. I could be wrong about that. I'm wrong about plenty of things. I'm always wrong. Somebody pointed out to me, somebody tweeted this clip to me of me a week or two ago. I don't know how long ago it was. Somebody, of during one of these live streams, and somebody asked in the chat if Pitt wins the ACC championship, do you expect Pitt, Kenny Pickett to play in the Peach Bowl? And I was like, absolutely. I don't think there's any question about it. If you've seen Kenny Pickett this year, he wouldn't miss that game or for anything, and blah, blah, blah. So, don't take my word for most things, probably, because I've been wrong about plenty over the years. I don't think that they will end up hiring Brennan Marion. I think there's a variety of reasons. He's been an offensive coordinator at a few places, never at the FBS level. He's spent 1 year as a Power 5 assistant coach, a full-time assistant. I think he spent, 2 years as an FBS assistant coach. I think the experience factor is limiting, and I just don't see it as a fit. Not yet. Not right now. Not after 1 year here. And if he ends up getting other job offers, if he's got other opportunities, more power to him. If he's got an opportunity to go be an offensive coordinator in the MAC or someplace like that, go for it, buddy. I think he does seem to have profile as a rising star in the coaching profession. So go get it. I've watched this guy since he was at William and Mary and Howard. He did an incredible job there. He'd come in and recruit Western Pennsylvania and all that, but I just don't think Pitt is going to give him that opportunity this year. Let's see here. Gavin R. says, it's kind of weird, though. We just won the ACC, and it seems like we are losing more recruits than gaining them. Well, yeah, they haven't gotten any new commitments lately. So they haven't, so you're right. They're not gaining commitments. They did lose a commitment from Camden Brown about a week or so ago. I think it was actually a week ago today, maybe, that he decommitted. They lost a commitment from Jordan Bailey earlier this week. On Sunday, the day after the ACC championship game. I think there were some factors there at play, some different things that caused that to happen. We talked about it on the message boards, although he might end up coming back into the class. So, that sort of remains to be seen. Look, this recruiting class, if I've said it once, I've said it a million times, Gavin, like this 2022 recruiting class, it was always going to be small. It wasn't going to have room for a lot of recruits, and so the ranking was always going to be kind of low. Because some of the recruiting rankings are kind of quantitative and cumulative, so you do get penalized a little bit for having fewer recruits in the class. So it was always going to be kind of low ranked as far as classes go in that regard. And I think I just kind of always viewed this a little bit like the 2019 recruiting class. Okay, an okay class. Solid class, a bunch of solid guys, kind of a foundational class, a lot of role players maybe not a lot in terms of high-end star power. The highest rated recruit in this class right now is an offensive lineman, and that is kind of what this class is. Now, I mentioned 2019 was that kind of class, and they came out in 2020 and 2021 with two of the best classes Pat Narduzzi has signed at Pitt. I think maybe the two best classes he has signed at Pitt, And so 2022 looks like it might be another one of those that are maybe not as flashy on, maybe not quite as good, maybe on the lower end. But I have every reason to think that in 23 and 24, they're going to bounce back and sign some really impressive classes. I think these will be two more really good classes for Narduzzi. So it goes in cycles. Recruiting is a cycle. It's impacted by a lot of factors. There are a lot of things that lead to the finished product of a recruiting class. And, I think just the way this year is trending, and it's the way it's been trending for a while. It's not just a reflection of the ACC or reaction to the ACC championship game. It's been trending this way for a while, that it's just not going to be a great class, whereas I think they have a chance to, maybe do that in 23 and 24. Let's see. Scrolling down here. Eric Bruno says, Chris, how does the class finish out? What positions are needed the most? It's a question of how many spaces they have. They're working on a couple defensive linemen. I think they're trying for one or two defensive backs. There's still a couple of guys out there. The 4-star, tight end Mason Taylor, Jason Taylor's son, who's committed to LSU. Pitt is still trying to get him. 4-star wide receiver Camden Brown, who decommitted. Somebody else asked about him. Garrett Sherwin asks, is there actually a chance Camden Brown comes to Pitt? Charlie Partridge actually visited him today. I'm going to hit him up actually once we get done here. And so they're still trying there. It's going to be tough. Camden Brown, 4-star wide receiver from Florida, who's an outstanding prospect, really good receiver, would play for Pitt next year if he came to Pitt. As a freshman, he would play. I'm almost positive about that. He announced a top 5 that's like Auburn, Georgia, Florida State, South Carolina, and Pitt. So, he's still kind of got Pitt in the mix, but he's going to take an official visit to Georgia this weekend. We'll see if Georgia needs him / wants him, but he's going to be there on campus, so that's at least something. It's going to be tough, but they're still working on him. I think, like I say, Eric, as far as filling out the class, there's just not a lot of room to do it. You know what I mean? Like how much counts is filling out the class? They've got 10 commitments right now. Maybe they get just a few more, leave room to get a transfer or two, and that's probably it. I think they'll have more room to use in 2023, which is another reason why I think that class is going to be a better class. Zachary Herbster says, Chris, is the fake slide the best play in Pitt history? All right, The fake slide. Let's talk about this. Oh, good. We did it. We passed the... oh, no. We're only at 80 minutes now. Darn. I thought we made it to the 90-minute mark. I've been trying to get this thing to a 90-minute podcast today. I guess we can still go for a few more minutes. Is the fake slide the best play in Pitt history? No. The Sugar Bowl pass, who's it, John Brown or whatever, the national championship winning pass. I mean, like, that's the best play in Pitt history. The fake slide, here's the thing about the fake slide, okay? He didn't cheat. He's not cheating. He's taking advantage of a rule, albeit I don't think he was thinking that. I mean, you hear Kenny Pickett describe it. He said it on the Dan Patrick Show on Wednesday that, he could tell that the defenders thought he was going to slow up. Or the defenders thought he was going to slide. He could see them start to pull up, and I think he saw that and recognized it before he even started into his slide. And he, and he's starting to recognize it, and he bounces back up. The first thing I would say, I guess, okay, let's start at the top. That's not an easy play to pull off. Like, you go try that. Go out in your yard right now and try to run and pull off that fake slide. You're not going to be able to do it. I don't think you can do it on grass. To be honest, I don't think you'd be able to do it on grass. If he slides his foot across, the turf. I don't even know if you could do it on a grass surface. It took advantage of a rule that is in place to protect quarterbacks, to make it safe for them to get down without taking a hit. Because of that, I think they will adjust the rule. They'll put in something about, once you dip your hips, then that's it. The play ends. And, if you keep running, you could call for a delay of game or whatever they call when you signal for a fair catch and carry a punt out. I don't think this is going to become a trend in football, in college football, or in the NFL. I just don't think it's that easy to do it. I got to be honest. All right, and I took a poll on this. On Twitter, to your question, Zach, about whether it's the best play in Pitt history. I have to be honest. Like, that was great. It was a 58-yard touchdown run, the first score of a game. The fourth down run against Miami, the bootleg in 2017. I don't know. I might lean toward that. Because that was such an epic sort of, birth of a legend type of play. I don't know. I don't know. I took a poll on Twitter, and everybody picked the fake slide. I actually asked Kenny Pickett. I was like, what do you think is a better play? Fake slide or that fourth down bootleg? And he said the fake slide. So, I mean, that's, I don't know. Oh, Tyler Buchanan says, I'm trying to have people tear their ACLs by telling them to go out and attempt the fake slide in their grass. Yeah, that's not a good idea. You shouldn't do that. But it was a great play. I mean, and obviously, even the run, if Pickett had gotten tackled, even if he really did slide, it's already an incredible, a great run, a huge move for the offense, and I think sets them up to probably get a touchdown there. Anyway, let's see. A bunch of people mentioned Robert Griffin III and what he was saying during that game. I thought RG3 was great. I thought he did a great job on that game. Like him, and I forget the play-by-play guy's name, and I apologize, but I thought they did a really good job. I didn't think they were perfect. They made a few mistakes, a few things that I wasn't sure about, but I thought they did a really great job calling that game. They seem to be, they seem to be? They seem to be enjoying themselves, and I think that was, I found that entertaining. It's a nice when you hear announcers on a game enjoying themselves, and I thought RG3 and the play-by-play guy were having a good time. So, all right, I think we're just about we got 85 minutes. That's pretty good. Listen, go to Homefield. All right, homefieldapparel.com. I got my Hawaii Rainbow Warrior sweatshirt on. It's just high quality products, and when you go check out whatchamacallit, if you go check out, oh, thanks, John Crowbot says it was Mark Jones. Thank you for bringing up his name. No, if you go check out Home Field, you go look at their Pitt collection. It's just outstanding. I mean, their logos, their graphics are so good. It's some of the best, Pitt graphics that you're going to find. And then they put it on a really high quality shirt. This isn't like you go like buy from some random vendor and it's crap shirts. This is a high quality t-shirt, high quality sweatshirt. So go to homefieldapparel.com, use the promo code LAIR, LAIR. And if you're a first time shopper, you get 15% off. I mean, 15% off. You're getting a great product and you're getting it at a discount. Promo code LAIR for first time shoppers. 15% off. Make sure you go to Panther-Lair.com, Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com. It's the most comprehensive source of Pitt sports news on the internet, football, basketball, recruiting. You find it all at Panther-Lair.com. And of course, message boards where you can interact with hundreds and thousands of your closest Pitt fan friends. Somebody called me out on that on Twitter. They use that tagline every time I talk about hundreds and thousands of your closest Pitt fan friends. I need to stop using that, but today's not the day, I guess. Panther-Lair.com. Appreciate everybody who jumped in on the live stream tonight. Everybody who listened to the podcast in the week or watched the video in the week. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com, so you never miss a live stream. Never miss any of our post-game shows, although season being over, I guess we're kind of done with those. I'm going to figure out what we'll do in Atlanta. I am going down for the Peach Bowl, and we'll figure out if we do a post-game show that night. Maybe a Sunday morning show or a Friday morning show or something like that. I don't know. We'll figure it out. I have a couple ideas I'm tossing around. We'll see what works out best. Live from wherever my hotel is in Atlanta. We might do a live stream. But yeah, make sure you subscribe. youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. And we would appreciate that. Get those subscriber numbers up. And more importantly, you can get a notification whenever we go live to talk about Pitt sports. So thanks again to everybody who came into the live stream tonight, came in the chat. It's been a lot of fun. Appreciate everybody who listens to the podcast. RJCman38 says it's taboo to talk about Jeff Capel. I'm sorry, man. Mark Whipple just left Pitt, and Kenny Pickett's not sure if he's playing in the Peach Bowl. So we had some more pressing matters to discuss. We'll talk about Jeff Capel plenty. Thanks. All right. Have a great week, everybody, and we will talk to you next week.